There are many times a hero is given a moment of failure, which can give them a reason to continue in their fight.
I'll avenge you, my friend. I swear it.
Most famously was the night when Gwen Stacy died, which pushed Spider-Man to battle the Green Goblin with a vengeance. Rocky hesitated to throw in the towel when Apollo Creed faced Ivan Drago, resulting in Apollo's death. This drove Rocky to train with everything until he was able to go the distance and win against Drago. Luke Skywalker failed to save Han Solo, which resulted in losing his hand in a fight against Darth Vader. After a year of Jedi training, Luke was able to lead his friends to save Han Solo.
Hey Luke, thanks. Thanks for coming after me. I owe you one.
And his final confrontation with Vader and Emperor Palpatine saw the fall of the Empire, bringing peace back to the galaxy. However, many heroes carry the guilt for their actions, regardless of how noble they may be. This at times even results in other characters, as well as fans, resting all of the blame on that character's shoulders. In Avengers Infinity War, Star-Lord hesitated in shooting Gamora, giving Thanos the upper hand, eventually resulting in her death and half of the universe being snapped away. In the world of the Transformers, Hot Rod, who despite saving the universe from the wrath of Unicron, has been the center of blame by many for this single moment.
No, you don't, Megatron! Out of the way, Hot Rod!
I'd like to thank my patrons and my channel members for your continued support. Consider becoming one or purchasing some merch on my Teespring store today. Quite a while back, I covered my favorite character in the Transformers franchise, Rodimus Prime, in a retrospective dedicated to Dick Gautier, who voiced the character in Season 3 of the cartoon.
Last big party of the summer, folks. Let's go out with a bang!
Just once, couldn't your attitude reflect the gravity of the situation?
Not if I can help it.
A lot has happened since then, and my production value has certainly increased, which may warrant a remaster of that video in the future, especially considering that his story has expanded in the franchise. To younger Transformers fans, they may simply only know him as Hot Rod. Introduced in the 1986 film, The Transformers the Movie, this brave Autobot wasn't afraid to jump headfirst into danger, despite it getting him into trouble sometimes. Destiny would eventually call upon him to become Rodimus Prime, the new leader of the Autobots during Season 3 of the G1 cartoon.
Autobots, transform! And
This was, of course, until Optimus Prime returned, resulting in him once again becoming Hot Rod. However, this begs the question, why do people hate Hot Rod and his upgrade as Rodimus Prime? For his detractors, it all stems from one pivotal moment in the character's history. During Optimus Prime and Megatron's duel to the death at the end of the Battle of Autobot City in the movie, Optimus Prime has Megatron dead to rights. But instead of taking out the Decepticon leader, he monologues.
You, who are without mercy, now plead for it? I thought you were made of sterner stuff.
Now you may have noticed that Megatron was crawling towards something. It's a gun. In the Marvel Comics adaptation of the film, Megatron, without hesitation, uses it to blast Optimus, delivering the fatal blow. However, in the actual film, Hot Rod jumps in to stop Megatron, to which Optimus replies,
Out of the way, Hot Rod!
Megatron overpowers the young Autobot, blasts Optimus Prime 3 times, and then tosses Hot Rod like a ragdoll. With the last ounce of his strength, Optimus Prime knocks the Decepticon leader from the ledge, fatally wounding Megatron.
How do you feel, mighty Megatron?
Sadly, despite this heroic act, Optimus collapses while Hot Rod rushes to his side, clearly concerned for his leader and friend. Of course, this ultimately led to the death of Optimus Prime, as the matrix of leadership was passed to Ultra Magnus. Interestingly, Ultra Magnus, despite looking very much like Optimus Prime, had a difficult time in the role.
I can't deal with that now.
And he lost the Matrix to Megatron's upgraded form of Galvatron on the planet of Junk. Hot Rod faced off against Galvatron from within the Chaos Bringer, Unicron, where he reclaimed the Matrix and became Rodimus Prime. After tossing Galvatron across the galaxy, Rodimus Prime opened the Matrix, lighting the Transformers' darkest hour, which destroyed Unicron. However, because of the pivotal moment earlier in the film, Rodimus Prime still carried the guilt of that throughout Season 3, and he was very vocal about how he felt.
Right, I'll have to be the chosen one.
It's at this moment that fans latched onto their hatred for Hot Rod. Why didn't he heed Cup's warning not to get involved?
I've got to help Prime! Stay away, lad! That's Prime's fight!
Why didn't he shoot Megatron with a blaster or his arm-mounted lasers? Why didn't he just call out to Optimus to distract Megatron? Is it fair to fully blame Hot Rod when it was Megatron who pulled the trigger? It's apparent that Hot Rod wasn't thinking clearly in the moment, as his inexperience and impulsiveness gave Megatron the upper hand. However, the blame can be pointed at everyone involved, from Hasbro, the writers, to Hot Rod, and even Optimus Prime, with the brunt of it going to none other than the cunning leader of the Decepticons, Megatron himself.
It's over, Prime.
From Hasbro's perspective at the time, Optimus Prime and all of the 1984 and 1985 cast were expendable since their toys were being discontinued in 1986. The new toys were being introduced by the film, with the new leaders taking the place of Optimus Prime and Megatron. What they didn't realize at the time was that Optimus Prime was clearly more than just a toy that Hasbro could sell. By the time of the movie, Optimus Prime was like Superman to many and a father figure to some latchkey kids.
Hang on to your dreams, Chip. The future is built on dreams.
In fact, there is even rumor that some kids locked themselves in their room for 2 weeks after Optimus Prime's devastating demise. Hasbro even had Bob Budiansky destroy Optimus Prime in the Marvel Comics, in which Budiansky left a back door to bring him back by placing his mind on a floppy disk. When writing Transformers the movie, Ron Friedman was in favor of raising the stakes for the Autobots and Decepticons by killing off some of the cast. However, he was adamantly opposed to have Optimus Prime die. As he has stated in interviews, Friedman saw the Autobots as a good family, with Optimus Prime as the father that everyone can get behind.
Thrones are for Decepticons. Besides, I'd rather roll.
And the Decepticons were a bad family that were always trying to usurp one another.
Beware, Starscream. If you dispose of me, there will always be someone waiting to dispose of you.
Ron Friedman stated that he knew that if Optimus Prime were to die, he would eventually have to be brought back.
Yes, darlings. And now no force in the universe will stop me.
However, Hasbro still mandated that it happen, and so Ron Friedman wrote Hot Rod as the eager teenager who so wanted to prove to Optimus Prime that he could be a hero as well, and that a harsh life lesson could forever shape his destiny to be transformed by the end of the film. When Hot Rod decides to rush to help Optimus Prime, he was not doing it to be malicious. He genuinely wanted to save his commander. When Cup says to Hot Rod to stay away, it was not a command. It was more of an experienced warrior telling his fellow comrade not to rush in foolishly.
Experience, lad. You should learn to appreciate it.
A lot of good it's done us so far.
In fact, this wasn't the first time an Autobot jumped in head first, and sometimes they were even successful despite being warned not to do so.
Look, it's Cliffjumper. He made it.
Move out!
Upon his arrival, Optimus Prime somehow knew that this would be his final confrontation with Megatron.
Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost.
Their history spanned 5 million years of battles on Cybertron before crash landing on Earth, and it was now 20 years ahead into the then future year of 2005. Mowing down Decepticons to reach his foe, he even stated his intention.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
This line became so famous that it is now completely overused.
One shall stand,
And one shall fall. You, Optimus Prime!
But that is a discussion for another day. Also, when Optimus Prime had his rifle aimed at Megatron, he allowed Megatron the chance to surrender. As the hero he has always been, Prime would never simply kill with no remorse.
surrender. You've lost this round.
This isn't Michael Bay's Optimus Prime, nor is it the sorry sap Optimus for the War for Cybertron trilogy.
Now, tell me you forgive me.
This is the Optimus Prime that truly believes that freedom is the right of all sentient beings,
We can't stand by and watch the destruction of this beautiful planet.
and is the one that Larry Cullen told his brother Peter how to act as a real hero.
We must have courage, Hopper. We can't ignore the danger. We must conquer it.
Despite knowing how sneaky Megatron can be, Optimus Prime gave his very typical heroic monologue, which allowed his enemy time, a total of 9 seconds, to crawl towards a hidden gun. Megatron even had the gun in his hands long enough for Optimus Prime to pull the trigger multiple times, and this was even before Hot Rod was close enough to tackle him. It's at that moment that Prime says,
Out of the way, Hot Rod!
but by that point it's too late. Megatron was just too strong for the young Autobot, and the Decepticon leader took full advantage. He even moves Hot Rod out of the way into a headlock to get a clear shot on Optimus Prime. You have to remember, Optimus Prime is an expert marksman. This is seen more than once in the cartoon. In a Prime Problem, we clearly see how well Optimus Prime can hit a target. In Transport to Oblivion, Prime was able to fire his rifle at a moving transport to free Spike Witwicky. So at any point during this encounter, Optimus Prime could have blasted Megatron in a similar fashion to Han Solo or Tuco.
When you have to shoot, don't talk.
But he didn't. It is understandable that he didn't want to hit one of his own Autobots, but the truth is Optimus Prime's honor has to take some of the blame here too.
This device will enable me to strike at the Autobots through Optimus Prime's only weakness. His overdeveloped sense of honor.
And this brings us to none other than the ever opportunistic leader of the Decepticons, Megatron. His ultimate goal was the destruction of the Autobots and to conquer the universe. Showing no mercy, he led the Decepticons on a massacre, first starting with the Autobots in the shuttle.
Such heroic nonsense.
Megatron then led an all-out assault on Autobot City, which saw more death and destruction.
Their defenses are broken! Let the slaughter begin!
He was the one to take advantage of Optimus Prime's sense of honor, like he had many times before.
Your pathetic concern for humans demonstrates that you're weak, Optimus Prime.
It was Megatron who overpowered Hot Rod, and he was the one to fire on Prime with murderous intent. He was overjoyed to see Prime fall.
I would have waited an eternity for this. It's over, Prime.
At the end of the day, Megatron was the one who killed Optimus Prime. In fact, later on in the film, Galvatron basically admits he was responsible for Optimus Prime's death twice.
I, Galvatron, will crush you just as Megatron crushed Prime. First, Prime. Then Ultra Magnus. And now, you.
Also, in The Return of Optimus Prime Part 2, a line probably deleted for TV censors has Galvatron even tell Optimus that he once killed him as Megatron and he will do so again, further bringing who is to blame full circle.
I don't need you anymore, Optimus. So much for your resurrection.
Unfortunately for Hot Rod, these facts don't matter to fans who despise the character. It's understandable considering their attachment to Optimus Prime and that they need a scapegoat. Regardless of Optimus Prime's honor or Megatron's treachery, they pin the full blame on Hot Rod, even at times to the most immature and childish levels. When fan letters reached Hasbro, the showrunners were forced to quickly produce a way for Optimus Prime to return, and the decision to kill Duke in the G.I. Joe movie was reversed as well.
Yo, Joe. He's gone into a coma.
This also affected how Hot Rod was treated in later Transformers media. In the Deviations one-shot comic book published by IDW had, unlike the Marvel Comics adaptation, saw Kup distract Hot Rod, allowing Optimus Prime to kill Megatron. However, every Autobot in the comic treats Hot Rod like the fans that hate him. Although the events are clearly altered, Hot Rod still uses the Matrix to destroy Unicron, but it also results in his death, which clearly shows the writer's contempt for the character. In the Prime Wars trilogy, Rodimus Prime's failures eventually led to him being temporarily possessed by Unicron, in a similar fashion to the Marvel UK exclusive stories. However, like his Shattered Glass counterpart, this evil Rodimus sported a black color scheme which resembled Nemesis Prime. However, at the end of the series, it's stated that Hot Rod's time as Rodimus Kron might be something that he may never recover from.
I doubt he'll ever recover from his actions as Rodimus Prime.
In the live-action films, Hot Rod also appeared in Transformers: The Last Knight.
She's very difficult.
Although he was part of the many confidants to the Order of Witwickens, Hot Rod was given one of the most annoying, stereotypical accents ever.
Hot Rod.
That's red.
Hot Rod.
Hot Rod.
Ugh. Why, Michael Bay? Why?
No. I hate the accent, but I can get rid of it.
At least he has a cool and unique weapon.
Get out of here! My weapon will stop the time!
In Transformers Cyberverse, Hot Rod is part of the Ark's crew. In the third season, Hot Rod, now sporting a black deco, led a team of both Autobots and Decepticons against the threat of the Quintessons. However, the showrunners chose not to have Hot Rod become Rodimus Prime,
Optimus, I need you to wake up. I can't do this on my own.
and when the threat of the Quintessons was concluded, Hot Rod went back to his familiar colors. However, Hot Rod did see a lot of growth and potential in the show, and he formed a long-time friendship with Bumblebee and the Allsparks Guardian, Cheetor. This is certainly despite that both have taken Hot Rod's destiny as leader in other Transformers series. While it is true that Hot Rod's lack of experience resulted in giving Megatron the upper hand, it's clear that he is not fully at fault. He saw the gun that Megatron was reaching for that Optimus Prime could not. Also, his arm-mounted blasters took too long to aim and fire, and he might miss and hit Prime in the crossfire. Like a true hero, Hot Rod could not let something happen to someone he cared so much about, even if it cost him his own life. Some may even call him stupidly brave.
Hey, I wasn't worried for a microsecond.
Then you probably didn't understand the situation.
However, this great failure was a lesson he had to carry with him on his hero's journey. In many of the drafts of the film were several lines from Hot Rod even showing this remorse and guilt over Optimus Prime's death. Kup, RC, and even Optimus Prime pinned the blame on Megatron. A remnant of this is still present when Hot Rod comes to Prime's aid after the fact.
Optimus, forgive me.
As the film continued, we see Hot Rod learning from his past mistakes as he focuses his attention on saving his friends and Cybertron from the threat of Unicron. He nobly saves Kup from a giant squid, repairs his injuries, balks at the evil of the Quintessons,
I have nothing but contempt for this court.
and picks up on Kup's wisdom by using the universal greeting to befriend the Junkions, which leads them to repairing Ultra Magnus. Without the Matrix, Ultra Magnus didn't know what to do, but it was Hot Rod who took command at that point, leading the final assault on Unicron. During his battle against Galvatron, he realizes that the only way to fight such a strong opponent is with some distance, using hit-and-run tactics. Even facing certain death at Galvatron's hands, Hot Rod never gave up as Optimus Prime himself, from within the Matrix, dubbed him Rodimus Prime.
Arise, Rodimus Prime.
Optimus.
After Rodimus Prime tossed Galvatron across the galaxy and opened the Matrix, the new Autobot commander heroically led the Autobots to escape from Unicron as the Chaos Bringer was destroyed. Although the battles were over, it was not the end of the troubles Rodimus Prime would face as the Autobot leader. But that is a discussion for another day.
And no matter what happens, hold your position.
At the end of the day, the loss of Optimus Prime was the first tragedy that many kids had to experience. That grief led to anger and misplaced blame on the young and inexperienced Autobot. Even Hot Rod carried that grief throughout the film, but ultimately it was Megatron who killed Optimus Prime. The best lesson we can learn from this is to accept that loss and learn to overcome.
As we march forward to a new age of peace and happiness, till all are one.
But what do you think? Do you feel that Hot Rod is responsible for Optimus Prime's death? Or was it really Megatron taking full advantage of the Autobots' bravery and honor? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you like this video, be sure to thumbs up and subscribe. Check out my other videos as well. I have many more Transformers discussions and retrospectives like this coming soon, so stay tuned. And as always, until next time, till all are one.
To do one's duty, for he who deserts his obligation is already defeated.
Thank you, Sensei. You've given me a lot to think about.